Formula 1 could have a 12th team on the grid by 2027, and is a revival of Caterham. Kuwaiti investor Saad Kassis-Mohamed wants to bring it back, and today we will see how the livery could look like on Assetto Corsa. Now, the first thing we need to address is the color. Caterham color is obviously green, but we already have a green racing car on the grid. My objective is to not make it too similar to Aston Martin, so we will go for a lighter green, and not the usual British racing usually used by English cars. Also using as a reference the Caterham CT03 used in 2013. After choosing a good enough color and putting some sponsor for reference, I decided to take her out for a run to see if it was lookable. And oh boy, it wasn't. We still have a lot of work to do, I guess. So back to the drawing board, I decided for once to start with the front wing instead of the side pods, putting Motul in red on the inside of the end plate of this beautiful F1 2026 by Racing Studio. We'll also talk a bit about the sponsor on this beautiful Caterham 2027, the first one being the main sponsor in Emirates Fly Better, which is a sponsor. It is a sponsor in Formula 1, but it doesn't sponsor a specific team, for now at least. Then Motul, French oil giants, which is not present in Formula 1 incredibly. They have sponsorship basically everywhere in the world of motorsport, but Formula 1 isn't present in their list. Another sponsor, which is quite lesser known, is Vertex Watches. Now, I had this as a sponsor because this company also sponsors Caterham's own one-make series, the 7 Championship, using, you probably guessed it, the Caterham 7. I'm also adding General Electric to the sponsor list, just because they sponsored the real Caterham in 2012 and 2013, if I remember correctly. Another sponsor is Virgin. Now, this is a strange union, only by the fact that Virgin was another team that raced in the first year of 2010s, but it kinda makes sense because, if I remember correctly, Virgin is a British company. And also, I would really like to see Virgin back in Formula 1, because they are a really big company, I think even bigger than Red Bull. They have Virgin Radio, Virgin Active, and even Virgin Galactic. So yeah, I think it fits. ITV also, one of the most important TV broadcaster in all of UK. We also have some minor sponsor in the form of Gulf Bank and Zain, two Kuwaiti companies. The first is a bank and the second is a telecommunication company, but they are really big in the Middle East. The last company is eToro, a blockchain company. Now, the unwritten rules of Formula 1 says that you must have some sort of cryptocurrency company. It's just the way it is. Now, we also have a special case being Norauto. I firstly included it in the sponsor list and on the livery, but then I remembered that Norauto is a tire maker, and that would make some competition with Pirelli that still makes tire to this day. So I decided to switch it for TCL, a Chinese mobile phone company that has some history in sponsoring Formula 1. More specifically, it sponsored multiple times the Australian Grand Prix. Getting back to the livery, you can see that I've almost finished the front wing, putting Motul on the inside of the end plate and Emirates Fly Better bigger on the frontal wing of the front wing. Hope I've explained myself. All in red, for their colors obviously. There will be a lot of red in this livery. And speaking of red, we'll also switch our attention to the side pod. Uses this parallelogram pattern on the side with two colors, the main red one for the sponsor and another one in grey, for a bit of contrast. I set almost the entirety of this livery on this one design. I thought it was something quite different from what we saw on the current grid. Another idea that I had is a bit copying from the livery of the past year where Caterham was still racing. In one of those, there was a Caterham logo between the front tires and the air intake, basically where the Ferrari has its logo on their cars, with a white background and a green writing. I thought about copying a little bit on this livery, but instead of making the background white, I decided for a different type of green. Caterham cars were also famous for some accent of yellow, but instead of using that, I decided for a different type of green, because I thought about I was using a bit too many colors if I use also yellow. After some copy and paste on the other side of the car, which had more trouble than I wanted to, and a little bit of blacking out some parts of the bottom of the car, I want to exploit the 100% of this car. You see, on the end plate of the front wing there's two flaps, we could call it. I wanted to use that as a place for sponsors. As you can see right now, I decided to use the W logo of Vertex watches. Now it was kinda hard to understand which way was the right way to put the sponsors, you can probably see right now on screen. But at the end I made it, and so the sponsor is facing the right way. The result at the end though, it was worth it. We will now go from one wing to another. I decided to do something a little bit funky. I used the inside of the end plate of the rear wing as a sponsor placement. It is not possible to do so with this generation of cars, but when it was possible, like with the cars of 2018, 2019 and 2020, I never saw it happening. But honestly, it's something that should be experimented by the teams, because this is still visible. In my eyes at least. After a little bit more of blacking out, maybe a little too much to the point that I got scared, I've continued with the rear wing, especially the main part, the one that is more visible to the cameras. First thing first, a big Caterham logo, with a little accent of those different kind of green that I also use on the front part for the other Caterham logo. I then now decide to create the main logo of the team, which is not only Caterham, but is Caterham XKM Racing. And XKM comes from the name of the guy that wants to bring back the team. And so we jump on Photoshop to create what is essentially a very simple design. I didn't want to spend hours to create the best design ever, but this simple one will do. I put it on the car on the same place we put the sponsor, on the front of the nose, and without doing it on purpose, I put it exactly over that air intake on the front nose, which honestly, I didn't do it on purpose, but it almost seems like it is done on purpose, so great job to me. Some other details like the FIA logo and the Pirelli logo then, blacking out the car part 3, and it is now time to pick a number. I didn't really thought about it a lot, I just picked number 21, which was a number used by Nick Liveries, and by 2027 I think it is free to use. If I remember correctly, it was a number that was usually used by Felipe Drugovich, so it could be the driver of this car. Putting then some eToro logos here and there, first on the front wing, and then on the side. On a completely new spot, because on the other car that I do liveries for, the F124 still by Racing Studio, there physically wasn't the place to put it in the same spot. This one though is another story, as a lot more developed and a lot nicer. We will now continue with the rear wing. We'll first put the Norauto logo that will go away later, and also the Golf Bank logo. I decided for this design with these stripes. I got inspired by the MotoGP bikes and the lower categories also that put these stripes with the colors of the sponsor on the side of the bikes. Another Golf Bank logo on the front wing, although different type of logo here. And we also put our Emirates Fly Better logo on the back of the car. I first tried to put one big Emirates on the center, but it felt like it was a big waste of space. So I first tried out to put a Emirates on the left and Fly Better on the right, but still didn't really like it. So I settled for a double Emirates, one on the left and one on the right. I usually don't do things like this, but in this case I think it works. We're almost at the end. I first decided for an SKM Racing logo on the lower part of the side pod, and then we add some sponsor to the upper part. First Virgin, then ITV, and last but not least, General Electrics. I then bring her out again for another testing session on the track, and although it is a lot better than the first time we did that, it still misses something. For this, I hop on back on Photoshop, and I design something that is a lot reminiscent than the things we did on the side pod for Emirates Fly Better, only with a moto sponsor this time. I think it needs a little bit more recognition, because yes, there are a lot of them, but aren't really in the most visible spot. I don't think we can delay this any further, so I'll get on with the presentation. There it is, the beautiful green beast. Now, I'll quickly get over the major changes here. First one, the bigger one maybe, is the TCL logo. that replaces the Norauto one on both sides. It also is a lot better because both Moto on the inside and TCL on the outside are basically the same color, so it matches pretty well. Another change that I did was the SKM logo that is now here on this new light green stripes that I did on the side with the same design that we had for the entirety of the livery. This one, kind of like this one on camera, it's fly better. Now, instead of the SKM logo, there is a Zyme one, because I didn't show it on camera, but before there were two big, enormous Zyme logos here on the top over the Virgin logo. Now I removed them and I put some more Zyme logos, substituting the Norauto one. Another idea that I want to show is the 7 here. Obviously the Caterham car with the most success is the Caterham 7, so I decided to pay a little tribute here and also here. Also with some other TCL logo here and some Virgin logos. The Moto logo that I added at the last minute. Now, I am really proud of this car. I think it's one of the best work I made so far. And honestly, if we were to put it beside other cars from 2026 or 2027, honestly, it would look good. It would look okay. It would look like a genuine car that would race in real life. So I'm really proud of this one.